Hello everyone, I'm Malvian and today we are going to solve the HackerRank challenge on the data structure section called the merge point of two lists, and given pointers to the head nodes of two linked lists that merge together at some point. Find the node where the two lists merge. The merge point is where both lists point to the same node. For example, they reference at the same memory location. It is guaranteed that the two head nodes will be different and neither will be null. If the lists share a common node, return that node's data value. And for the node after the merge point, both lists will share the same node pointers. We have the diagram that the two lists converge at node X. We have node A, B, C and points to the next property of X, Y and then Z and then null. Also the same thing goes to the list number 2. We have P and the next property is Q and the next property is X, Y, Z and then null. And we have two parameters called the head1 and we have also head2, and this is the name of the function called the find merge node. The expected output in the form of integer, and we are using Java 7. If you want to use something else other than Java 7, then go ahead. I encourage you to do so. And for the expected return in the form of integer, which is the data property from the node where the list merge. So for placeholder, we can return 0 as the placeholder answer. Okay, so we have even length of list 1 and list 2, or head 1 or head 2, and it is in the form of y, and they meet at the node 2 because of the list 1 dot next from the node 1, it is pointing to the node 2, and also the same thing goes to the node 1. The next property also points to the node 2, just like the first one. And we have the another test case. We have uneven list length from the list 1 and the list 2. We have 1, 2 and then 3 and then null. The second head points directly to the 3 and then null, which is uneven. So in order to find the 3 as the answer or the 2 as the answer, we need to use two pointers and make them meet in the same node state or the head state of the pointer that we are working with. So let me draw an example. We have from the test case 1, we have 1, and then the next one points to the 2, the next one points to the 3, and the next one points to the null. And for the second one, which is head 2, we have node 1, and then the second after the node 1 points to the 3, node 3, and then the next one is null. How do we iterate this? It is fairly simple by using two pointers. We have pointers A and we have pointer B, and they both points at the initial state of each parameter. The pointer 1 points to the 1 right here, and the pointer 2 points to the 1 right here, and the next one points to the 2, and the next one the pointer 2 points to the 3, and then the next iteration the pointer 1 points to the 3 and the second pointer points to the null. If it is null, then we can add the check. If it's null, then points to the head 1 using the pointer 2. And for the next iteration, since it is already null, then we move the pointer of the pointer 1 to the head 2, and then we have 1. Let me iterate this by using the first iteration. First iteration, we have both 1 and 1. They both pointing at 1 and 1. And the next iteration, for the second iteration, we are pointing 2 and 3, 2 and 3. And the next one, we are pointing to the 3 and 1. Why is it 1? It's because the list 2 already exhausted, then it will move to the head 1 as the new iteration from the pointer 2. And the next one, we are pointing, since the pointer 1 already points to the null, then it moves to the head 2 as the iteration using 1 and 2. And then for the next one, we have 3 and 3. We have both 3 and 3. That is the answer, 3 and 3, and then the iteration will stop and we return the answer as the data value or the data property of 3. To implement this, we can use two pointers, like I said earlier, in the singly linked list node called the pointer 1 or the current one that points to the head 1. That is the initial value of the C1 property or the C1 variable. And the singly linked list node, we have current 2 as the pointer that points to the head 2 as the initial value that points to the reference of the head 2, and also the C1 points to the using the reference of the head 1. And these pointers will move to iterates over the head 1 and head 2, and the actual parameter of the head 1 head 2 will stays, and the one that moves is only the pointer in order to find the meeting point from both head 1 and head 2 using the two pointers. To implement this, we can use the while loop. While check if the reference of the C1, as long as both references are not equal. As long as it is not equal, then we need to iterate over the node and swap the places or swap the pointers between one and another. Let's say if C1 already exhausted, then it moves to the head 2 to be iterate, and if the same thing goes to the C2, if it is already exhausted, it's already pointing to the null, then it will iterate over the head 1 node chain. We can use if check if the C1.next is null, then we can use points C1 to the head 2, swapping the place. Remember, the first one points to the head 1 since it is C1, and then if the next property is already null, since it is null or exhausted, then it will points to the head 2 to be iterated. And we can use the else check if the next property is not null or contains the data, then the C1 points to the C1.next. The same thing also applies on the C2. Using the copy and paste, and then I'm using the Ctrl D, selecting all of the C1 from the next if check. After Ctrl D, I'm just typing C2, and that way we are changing multiple variable using multiple pointers using the Ctrl D. The same thing also applies to the C2. If C2.next is equals to null, then we move the C2 to the head 1. It is not head 2, but it is head 1, just like the opposite of the C1. And then if it is not exhausted yet, then it will move to the next property, and then it will eventually find one another using the while loop check. If it's already the same reference of the C1 and C2, then the while loop will stops and we return the answer either C1 or C2. It is okay, but for the C1 it is marked with the red underline. Why? It is because the function expecting an integer instead of the node reference. Since it is pointing to the integer, remember that we are returning the data value if it already met using the C1.data. We don't have to check the edge case because the constraints already define that the list will merge no matter what, and the either head 1 or head 2 is never be null, and the head 1 is not equals to the head 2. So that is why the test case is points to the 2, and also we have head 2 is also points to the 2. That is the edge case. So we don't have to use the if head 1 is equals to null, then we return null, or the head 2 is equals to null, then we don't have to return null at all. And we can simply use the pointer without the if check prior to the challenge. So let's run this code to see if it works. Okay, so let's submit this. Okay, so let me point something. Instead of using if else check, if you want to use the ternary operator, you can do that. Instead of using if else check, since it is also already points to the C1, and the same thing, the same else check also points to the C1 equals to the C1.next. The if check, if it satisfies the if check, then it will points to the head2 instead of the C1.next. We can add the check using the ternary operator. C1, if C1 equals to the, we can add a check, C1.next equals to null, then we points to the head2. And then using the colon sign, if it's not, then we point to the C1.next. And the same thing goes to the C2. We can use C2, C2.next null, and points to the head1. And then let's comment the if check using the selecting, and then using control slash, and then let's run the code again to see if it works. Let's submit this. Yep, if you want to use the ternary operator, then go ahead. If you want to use more verbose approach using the if check, you can go ahead. It is about balancing between readability and simplicity. Okay, so that's about it. I hope you understand my explanation. If you still don't understand, you can ask me in the comment section. Or if you have any better solutions regarding this challenge, tell us what you think in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.